Today we're going to talk about unconditional love. We use this expression so often, we sometimes forget what it actually means. It's love without conditions. I love numbers and spreadsheets, not unconditionally, but deeply. And so in Excel terms, it's not if blank, then love. It's just equal love. When I think about unconditional love, the first thing that comes to mind is the love from parents to their children. It's what I often hear parents talk about, and what my parents must have felt for my siblings and I to love us despite how not so lovely we often were, and sometimes still are. I also think for the love of my siblings. When I was 5, I got the greatest gift of all, twin siblings, a boy and a girl at the same time. They're probably the first people that I ever felt unconditional love towards. No matter where we were, what they were doing, no matter how big of a fight we are in or how far away we live, I just love them for no other reason than because they're them. The latest one on my mind is the love for my partner. After 5 years of being together, we decided to get married and promised to love each other forever. This one is a little different because this one I chose. Now, we talk about all these different types of love. The ones we are born into, the ones we choose, the ones that life gives us. All this from us to others. And we don't often talk about the love for ourselves, especially not in terms of unconditional love. Like many things in our lives, we spend so long pouring ourselves out that we lose sight of what is within, and we end up running on empty. The thing in those moments is that it doesn't matter how much you love your parents, your siblings, your friends, your family, you just don't have the fuel to be there for them. That is why today I want to focus on self-love. Now, to talk about this, I have to start where it began for me, and that is in self-loathe. I have always been really hard on myself. Since I was a little girl, I was very strict with the way things have to be. I was brilliant at math and numbers, but not so good in literature. Great weapon to use against myself. No matter how good my math grades were, I would always find a way to put myself down because of the not so good literature ones. And so I picked up weapons here and there. You're not good in literature, so you're not really smart enough. You're not skinny like other girls, so you're not really pretty. You have a hard time talking to strangers and you're kind of shy, so you're probably going to be alone forever. And so my arsenal grew, and with that, self-loathing became a habit. The wounds grew deeper and stronger, and because I did not know any better, I just took it as something else that was wrong with me and that I had to feel bad about, making the habit even stronger. The theme here was, if blank, then love, else loathe. At some point in my mid-20s, I started to question this whole setup. I've been so sad for so long. I keep hurting myself with guilt and shame and hate, and it's only been a quarter of my life. No way this is what life is supposed to be about. And so, the day before my 25th birthday, I started working with a therapist. It was this unconventional, wise, wonderful woman, and she helped me see myself through an entirely different lens. She gave me tons of homework in between sessions, had me reading books, repeating phrases like, I love myself, I accept myself, I approve of myself. She had me write on my mirror, I am awesome, and it was one of the most uncomfortable things to do. It felt icky and weird and just so far from true. Actually, more uncomfortable than that was looking at my face in the mirror as I said those words. These were all short sentences. It wasn't, I approve of myself because of XYZ. It was just, I approve of myself, full stop. These were just the first steps in my self-love journey. It started with noticing there was such a thing. I could actually love me, and I could practice loving me. Things like thankfulness to myself in the morning, or looking at myself in the mirror and giving me words of encouragement or endearment or acknowledgement. Doing nice things like getting coffee or giving myself a mani-pedi. About a year after I started therapy, I moved from Colombia to New York to get my MBA at NYU. In this, I totally loved myself. Not only an MBA in the US, not only New York, not only a great school, but with a scholarship. All those years of good grades, of corporate experience, all the cramming of the GMAT and the TOEFL and applications, and all the big projects, it all paid off. I'm not saying this to gloat. I'm saying this for you to notice what the love was for. I didn't just love myself. I love myself because of all these things, all these conditions. The thing with conditions is that they won't last. They're temporary. And then so is the self-love. And at any point, it can just fall. I think that's actually what happened as I went to business school. When I started, I realized everybody there had the same accomplishments as I did, or more. They were smarter, they had more experience, or at least that's how I saw it. I was far from being top of the class, and I actually struggled to get a job before graduation. All these conditions that I had set up for loving myself, the grades, the salaries, the roles, all these conditions were challenged. At the same time, I discovered other things, and I think that's what kept me out of the downward spiral. I discovered fun workouts as a way to love me and not as a way to change who I am. I got to live in New York. I made new friends, I got a boyfriend. It was still conditions, it just gave me more to choose from. In the end, I did get a good job. I got to stay in New York, and my partner and I moved in together. It was all pretty sweet. And I kept on with my self-love practices. Then 2 years later, I started rocking the boat again. My partner moved back to Indy, where he's from, and then a few months after that, my company got shut down. So I decided to move to the Midwest over that summer. As you can imagine, some of my conditions started to fall again. Here I was in Indianapolis, no job, no friends, nothing to show for myself. And with that, my weapons came up. You got a new job, but it doesn't pay as much as before or as much as your peers, so you're not actually that good. You haven't made any new friends, so you're not actually as cool or as outgoing as you thought you were. You're sad, and so you're not strong. At the same time, my self-love practices started to fall through, making the weapons that much stronger. A little later, I enrolled in this leadership and coaching program. I started working with a life coach, and a few months later, I started working with a new therapist. You may say I went all in on personal development. The truth is that I was just going for the next thing, fixing the next thing, learning the other thing, getting that extra thing for my next corporate career accomplishment. It just ended up being so much more than that. It ended up being more about discovering myself. And so I re-empowered my self-love practices and discovered some new ones, and I started to fall in love with me. In that path, I actually decided to leave my corporate job and go all in with coaching. This meant becoming an entrepreneur, which I never, ever, ever thought I would be. It also meant leaving behind the comfort of a steady paycheck and someone else calling the shots, for better or worse. It especially meant leaving behind these things that I had set up as conditions for my love. I went in with the excitement of following a passion and completely ignored the path I was no longer taking. I chose to not become a CFO. I chose to not climb the corporate ladder and get the corner office. I chose to not be a woman in business breaking the glass ceiling from within. I chose to not work with spreadsheets and numbers. I chose to not have a fancy role title I could show off to my family and friends. This feels really hard to say because those were all the things that made me worthy of my love. You may say, well, you've done all these other things. You've created now your own community here in Indy. You planned this beautiful wedding. You're creating a loving marriage. You've made some new friends. You took a chance, and you're creating something of your own. If you agree, you probably played the same game I play. If blank, then love. It's all different flavors of the same ice cream, because what happens if I don't have friends? What happens if my business is struggling? What happens if my partner and I get in a fight and it doesn't feel rock solid? Then with that, the self-love falls also. In this last stretch, different weapon came up. Anybody here familiar with self-sabotage? Well, the way it looked like for me was random naps in the middle of the day, waking up late, and doing absolutely everything except what would grow my business, and then spending tons of time feeling horrible about the whole thing. I noticed it this time, and I started doing something different. I re-empowered my self-love practices. I created support structures with family, friends, with my teammates. I created this 5 a.m. club that has a workout first thing in the morning to love myself, feel stronger, thankfulness to begin and end the day, and a time to grow and reflect first thing in the morning. I would love to close this talk with a big bow and tell you I love myself unconditionally. And I am a human and a work in progress. The truth is that self-loathing is a habit, and self-love is a practice. And so what I'm going to leave you with is this: wash, rinse, repeat. It starts with noticing those conditions you put around your self-love and those habits of self-loathing. Then it comes choosing to do something different, choosing to love yourself just because, and creating structures around that. Practice choosing to love yourself right here, right now, just the way you are and the way you are not. Then choose again, and again, and again. Wash, rinse, repeat. Notice, choose, repeat. I love myself. I accept myself. I approve of myself. Thank you.